Introduction, she is the joy of the field. Mary Barua is the director, Action for Autism, is an activist, special educator, and a parent to a son with autism. Mary writes, teaches, lobbies, trains, sensitizes, counsels, and advocates. Her focus on spreading the word and enabling individuals with autism and their families to empower themselves has led to a growth in services and formation of empowered parent groups, and in particular of parent-driven services. Mary is an Ashoka Fellow and has received national and international recognition for her work. So you all are muted for now, and you will have the option to unmute at the time of question answer round at the end of the session. So over to you, Mary. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Khyati. Good evening, everybody. Good to be here. Today's discussion is something that where we are hoping to have the involvement of not just parents of kids with autism, but of the extended family as well. Last week, I was speaking to a friend and I wanted to discuss something with her. And so when I connected with her, she said, Mary, can we please do this on next Sunday or Monday? Because today we have to go and visit my Masi and other family members. And, you know, when she said that, I understood, of course, because in our culture, the extended family is a very, very big part of our lives. So most of us, there are exceptions, of course, to the rule everywhere. But for most of us, our extended family is a very important part. And there are innumerable family events, shadis, I mean, people are always getting married, right? So especially now that the lockdown is over. So shadis and birthdays and Diwali, Eid, Christmas. In India, these are all majorly family events for which we all get together and we all celebrate as large extended families, right? In addition, not just that we have to participate, and we do participate in all of these things that are large family events, many of us also live in joint families or live with extended families, have extended family members who live with us, right? And of course, for those who don't have who have a nuclear family, these family events and connections and get-togethers are a very, very important part of our lives. But when my friend said this, that, you know, she wanted to, and of course I understood, knowing what, you know, our social situation is like in our country, but there was something else that my friend said. Like me, she also happens to be a parent. She parents a son with autism, though her son is a little fellow, not a grown man like mine. And what she said was that, you know, I would have, you know, we are going to my Masi's. My son loves visiting my Masi, his Nani. And I like going there also, but now it has become very stressful for us. And it ends up creating a lot of anxiety for me and for my husband. And so I asked her, why was it that? So I asked her, why was it that, you know, this was happening? And then the things that she shared were, you know, they were a refrain from what I hear from a lot of the families a lot of the time, right? And this refrain is really about that whenever, you know, a lot of the parents share that whenever they're in family groups or when there are other family members around, whenever the extended families around, there is a lot of things that they have to hear and a lot of things they do that they have to constantly justify. Sometimes some of the things that they hear is that, oh, you're too strict with your child. Or they hear that you let your child get away with everything. Kuch to usko roko, right? Or sometimes they hear things like, you know what your child does, ये जो करता है ना, it's not acceptable. उसको सिखाना चाहिए, ठीक से सिखाना चाहिए. आप क्या करते हो इसके साथ? Sometimes when these events really become difficult and they don't want to stay for long or they want to leave early, they often hear things like, they are spoiled sports, they don't, they are being asocial, they don't want to participate in family events and things like that. And these are things that families have to hear a lot. And for many families, particularly young families, young parents that are starting out, and also for older families, uh, it's often difficult to deal with this, all this advice that comes, because they find it hard to justify what they are doing and why they are doing, because especially for a lot of parents who are still new on the path, they are themselves trying to understand their learnings. They are themselves trying to understand what they are, what they have to share with their families, and to understand what they're doing with their child. Sorry, I wanted to ask, I got distracted because it occurred to me, should I also speak a little bit in Hindi or should I carry on in English? Okay, never mind, I'll just carry on in English. Um, So, so there is a lot of advice that comes, as well as censure that comes from the surrounding community. And some of this advice and censure is also comes from professionals who the extended family may know. It comes from other parents, but it also comes from their own extended family members. And all of this advice, when it comes, it actually comes from a very good place. लोग जब बोलते हैं प्यार से बोलते हैं, caring से बोलते हैं, right? But it also comes from a place जहाँ पर when the extended family members are giving the advice, or when they are telling them ऐसा क्यों करते हो, मत करो, it comes from a place of not quite understanding autism है क्या, not from an understanding of autism. And it is understandable that the extended family oftentimes give suggestions and advice that are not exactly the very helpful ones, because they often don't have a great understanding of autism. And as parents, many of us as parents know that it took us a long time to understand what autism is beyond the diagnosis. क्योंकि diagnosis में क्या बोलता है, communication में difficulty है, social difficulties है, etc. etc. Or when we get that kind of a diagnosis, which is not really very helpful, because जब बोलते हैं communication में difficulty है, and many of our children are very verbal, तो लोग सोचते हैं इतना बात करते हैं तो communication का क्या problem है, right? Of course, some of them also do not speak. And then parents and other, family members and parents also in the beginning feel कि अभी तो छोटा है, बाद में बोलना शुरू कर देगा. And I think the main difficulty that comes is from the fact that it is hard for family members, when parents themselves are trying to understand autism, for other family members to really understand that autism is not just this little diagnostic definition जो हम देखते हैं, but that autism is really a different way of experiencing the world. When autistic people, when we have an autistic person in our life, what really happens for them is that they experience the world differently, they perceive the world differently, and then they interact with the world in a very, very different way. They interact at a physical level, at an emotional level, her level में. The way they, can I just get rid of this? It's very hard there. Okay. This transcription thing, okay, it's gone. So they experience the world in a very different way, and they interact with the world in a very different way. और ये जो interaction जो होता है, very different kind of interaction, that is what, can something be done about this? Okay, never mind. This live transcription is very distracting for me. I won't look at it. I'll look away. So So where was I? Yeah. So the interaction is very, very different. And their experiences are so different from the neurotypical experience, so different from the non-autistic experience. For instance, you know, हम जानते हैं, and even extended family members know that communication है, communication करता है, मगर उसका communication इतना literal है. That is something that often family members find difficult to understand. So हम यदि हमारे बच्चे को बोलते हैं, he's doing his work, and I say, keep your eye on the watch. Now, when I say keep your eye on the watch to any kid, they will know कि हमें टाइम के ऊपर ध्यान रखना है, जैसे कि हमें उसका मतलब है हमें इसको इस टाइम के अंदर खत्म करना है. But when you tell the autistic kid कि keep your eye on the clock, many of them are probably thinking clock लेकर उसके ऊपर मेरा आंख को डालना है. I have to keep my eye on the clock, right? So इतना literalness है उसका understanding में. Understanding their pronouns, for instance, can be so difficult. Understanding abstractions, you know, so one of the things जो parents often have to deal with is ये जो abstraction समझने में जो difficulty है. So for instance, हमारे culture में एक है कि हम बड़ों का खाली नाम लेकर नहीं पुकारते हैं. When I call an adult, I have to call them. I can't call my mother by my name or my grandmother by my name. I have to call them Nani, I have to call my mother. I can understand. Many of our children take time to do that. I know my son for a long time used to call me Mary. Took him a long time to learn that to call me Mama, right? And of course, there were people who were judging me for that. And it you know, some of us are very thick-skinned, but for everybody, it's not easy. जब हमको जज किया जाता है कैसा औरत है, देखो बेटा को नाम लेकर बुलाने का, you know, taught him to call me by name. And look at the abstraction. तो हमें adult कोई आता है, older, sorry, adult नहीं, हमारे से older उम्र का कोई आता है, तो उसको किसी को दीदी बोलना है, किसी को आंटी बोलना है, किसी को अंकल बोलना है, हम किसको क्या बोलेंगे? और हमारे जो एक बहुत क्या बोले, एक hierarchical society है. I have heard a mother telling the child, the autistic child जो सीखा है, बहुत difficulty से सीखा है, whenever I see a lady who's higher than me, taller than me, older than me, हम उसको auntie बोलेंगे. So he was calling the house help auntie, and the mother said, इसको auntie क्यों बोलते, इसको दीदी बोल. I mean, that's how hierarchical we are. And if we are going to get into this kind of complexities with our children, it can be very difficult. And very often parents begin to understand कि ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, फैमिली में सबको आंटी अंकल दीदी बोल लिया, बाहर का लोग आते हैं नाम से पुकारे, कोई बात नहीं. And then families are often judged for that. I know parents were judged कि बच्चे को, I was one of those, कि अपने बच्चे को ठीक से सिखाया नहीं, सही लर्निंग नहीं दिया है कि कैसे किसको क्या बोल के बुलाना है. And when our children are early learners and even later, there are so many parents are struggling with उसको self-regulation सिखाना है, teaching them to regulate their emotions, regulate their wants, you know, all of these. So for instance, हम सिखा रहे हैं, right? हम जब self-regulation सिखा रहे हैं, for instance. So when my child, every time मेरा बच्चा कुछ demand करेगा, I will not give it to him. I will teach my child there are times when you get it. I will teach my child that there is some time on your schedule, that is when you will get it. And my child is learning. But क्या होता है if my child दो बार बोलता है नहीं please दे दो, and then I redirect him, I tell him आपको पता है ना कब मिलेगा. But then what happens if my sister walks in and says, अच्छा वो मांग रहा है, चलो हम उसको एक चॉकलेट दे देते हैं, and that happens. Or his uncle walks in and says, अरे ऐसा कर रहा है उसको, चलो 2 चिप्स दे दो. क्यों उसको तंग करते हो, परेशान करते हो, छोटा बच्चा है. Imagine how hard it is for a parent who's trying to teach the child self-regulation to have the whole thing completely upended, because तब क्या हो रहा है, not only is, you know, forget about what I'm doing. my child is confused because मेरा बच्चा सीख रहा है कि I will get it on my schedule. हम एक दो बार try कर लेते हैं, try करके देखते हैं मिल जाता है क्या नहीं. And instead of that consistency, हम try किए हैं, but I find कि schedule के बाहर हमें नहीं मिलेगा. वो सीखने के बाद बदले हम देख रहे हैं कभी भी कोई भी आकर हमें दे देता है. So then I will keep demanding. I'm also confused. I don't know when I get it, when I don't get it. So it becomes very difficult हमारे बच्चे को self regulation सिखाना, to learn when can I get things, how do I get things. Self regulation in simple wants. हम wants के ऊपर self regulation नहीं सीख पाए हैं, तो हम emotions का self regulation कैसे सीखेंगे, which is so much more difficult, right? So for instance, you may have children who play with their toys and they want to go and take toys from everybody else. When they are small, all children do it. All children try to snatch toys and all children hold on to their toys. बहुत कम बच्चे हैं जो अपने toys को easily छोड़ देते हैं. Now with our children, we have to teach them that you, first of all, we cannot let them share because they have to learn I play only with my toys. और वो अपना toy से खेलेगा और किसी का नहीं मिलेगा, वो जब सीखेगा, and at that time I cannot let other people take his toys, then he will not learn, right? And most parents know that. But then when somebody comes to the house, the child is expected to give their toys away. But the child is still learning that I play with my toys. Only at that point, I cannot have the child give away their toys. And the number of times that we've seen parents being told, "Kyun nahi share kar sakta hai?" He will learn sharing later, right? And once the child has learned, then the child will learn how to share. And sometimes what happens is that parents also try to teach them that if I want something, I will get it, but I will get it later. That is again a very important part of learning. With most of our children, at least the ones when we work with them, and that's the methods we use, and all the parents who come to us, we tell them that when the child wants something, we don't say, no, you won't get it. Because our kids hear a lot of no, हम सबको पता है. Those of us who are parents, we know कितना no सुनता है. हम extended family में भी जानते हैं कितना no, मत करो, मत, don't, no, stop. This is what they hear all the time, right? Autistic kids hear it more than any other population. So it is very important to teach them that that is not your life. So instead of saying no all the time, when they want something, we say, sure, you will get it. You will get it after you finish your work. Of course, you will get that. Remember, on Friday. Acha, aapko jana hai na? We will go next week. So basically, they learn that things are not a no, but yes, hone wala hai. Again, this is something that it is very important for extended family members to learn. And also it is important for parents of autistic kids to learn that when I'm doing this with my autistic child, I do this with my neurotypical child also. I cannot tell my autistic kid, okay, of course you will get it. We'll get it on Friday. And when my neurotypical child wants something, I say, no, abhi nahi milne wala hai. I have to use the same strategy with my neurotypical child. And I have to use the same strategy with his cousins. And that is something very important for the extended family to understand, that when the parent is not saying no to their child, it's not just about that child. That is a great way of teaching children to begin to learn refusal in their life rather than starting with a no. And I know that हमारा belief है with neurotypical children कि no बोलो नहीं तो वो कैसे सीखेगा. Of course we सीखेगा, but when we do this excessive no's, that is why there is a lot of adolescents, non-autistic, I'm not talking about autism, non-autistic kids, adolescents with adolescent issues. The other thing that happens is that हम जब अपने न्यूरोटिपिकल बच्चे को बोलते हैं ना, हमारे ऑटिस्टिक बच्चे को, कजिन्स को बोलते हैं, पेरेंट्स बोलते हैं नहीं, क्यों नहीं नो बोलेंगे, हम नो बोलते हैं. सी ऑल ऑफ देम लर्न कि हम पेरेंट को ये बोले हैं. बाय द टाइम दे इन देयर 10-year-old 11 एंड अप्रोचिंग देयर टीन्स एंड वंस इन देयर टीन्स, हम जब उसको पता है उसको नो बोलेंगे, दे नो हाउ टू लाई, दे नो हाउ टू हाइड, and they know how to do what they want to do without people getting to know. That's a fact, that's a reality. We all have done it. When we've been told, no, you can't go there, we've gone without telling our parents. We've said, wahan ja rahe hain, bolkar wahan gaye. When we've been told, no, you can't take this, we've taken it when our parent is not looking. And when we were asked, have you done this? We've said no when we have. So you see, that's the difference between the lot of no's that are said to neurotypical children, because they know how to get their way by means that our autistic kids will not do. Our autistic kids won't lie. They will not hide and take it. And even if they do, you get to know if they ever try. So they are very upfront. So what ends up happening when we keep doing no's to them is that you end up with what we know as adolescent issues and autism. That's a large part of it, because they're constantly hearing no's, they're not ever getting their way, and they don't know how to lie and get their way. So as parents, we have to negotiate with them. We have to say, yes, you want this, and you know it's on your schedule, you will get it after this time. Or you know it's on your calendar, we'll get it next week, instead of saying a no. And that is something that is so important for the extended family to understand why we are doing this. And in fact, what I would like to tell the extended family is, try this with your neurotypical child, try it with your autistic kids' cousins, and you see the amazing results you have, because it really helps all of them. Not having to hear no is something that all kids like. Hearing no, you can't do this, you can't go there, no, don't do that, is something none of us like particularly. And that's true of our neurotypical children as well. The other thing that very often gets to be a bit problematic is some of our children are very vocal, बहुत बोलते हैं, बहुत communicate करते हैं, बहुत अच्छा भाषा से communicate कर सकते हैं, right? They use fluent communication, and people tend to think, अरे ये तो सब बोल सकता है, सब समझ सकता है, what's his problem? He's just a difficult child, right? And the thing is that even the autistic child who's, like I said, they have a different way of experiencing the world, a different way of interacting. Even the child who's got fluent language will not be able to come and share, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I had difficulties at school today, would not be able to come home and say that, I was done badly by this kid who was in class, or that my, the kid who sits next to me in school was bothering me, he spoiled my things. They would not be able to come and share all of these things. So just being able to communicate does not mean the child is able to communicate everything. And the child still has difficulties. And that is something that everybody in the family has to understand, because everybody has to, when we are bringing up an autistic child, all of us are learning, and all of us need all the support that we can get. And everybody has to understand what we are trying to do and why we are doing it, in order to help the child not be anxious and be able to learn well. And the less anxiety the child has, the better a learner they are. One of the things that happens I was talking about communication. There is also this feeling that if there is a child who does not speak, uska koi difficulties nahi hai. वो express नहीं कर रहा है, तो वो कुछ समझता नहीं बोलता है तो कुछ नहीं समझता है. And that is something that we'll have to change, because of course समझता है, even if they're not speaking. तो उसके सामने हम क्या बोल रहे हैं, हमें बहुत सोचकर बोलना चाहिए. क्योंकि जस्ट बिकॉज वो बोलता नहीं है ये नहीं कि वो समझता नहीं है. ऑल्सो जब कोई पेरेंट कोई तरीके का असिस्टिव कम्युनिकेशन यूज करने का कोशिश कर रहा है, मे बी साइंस या कार्ड्स, कभी कभी फैमिलीज को लगता है क्या फालतू बकवास कर रहा है, क्या समझता है ये बच्चा, क्यों इसके साथ ये सब करता है. But it is very important to support them in any communication strategies that they use. And not just in communication strategies. Another very important one that there is a lot of misunderstanding about is the use of structure. To a lot of families, the use of structure seems very irrelevant. और हम जब structure बोल रहे हैं, what do we mean by that? What I mean is that supposing I go shopping, right? हमें कल market जाना है, and tomorrow is the only day that I have the card available to me. So I have to go to the bank. Then I have to I have to go to the bank. I have to get my hair done. Uske baad, I have to get a haircut. As you can see, I get a haircut a lot. And then I have to go to meet my friend. And after meeting my friend, I have a few things to buy. Then we go for a movie. And then on the way back, I must remember to pick up my medicines. And I know for one, I write this all down. Because हमें पता है हम सब लिखकर नहीं जाएंगे, तो हम शायद दवाई लेकर आने भूल जाएंगे, या और कुछ करने भूल जाएंगे, या तो बैंक के बाद भूल कर पहले फ्रेंड के घर चले जाएंगे और उसके बाद banking hours खत्म हो जाएगा, because they break for lunch in the middle and I can't go in then. So it is very important for me and for many of us to make a list of all the things that I'm going to do. It's a bit like स्कूल में जो टाइम टेबल दिया जाता है, ऐसा तो नहीं होता है ना, स्कूल में आते हैं, टीचर बोलता है अच्छा हिस्ट्री के बाद ना आज इंग्लिश, चलो इंग्लिश निकाल के रेडी हो जाओ, इंग्लिश किताब. उसके बाद कोई आकर बोलता है अच्छा नहीं आज जिम जाना है अभी. I know beforehand what my timetable is for the day. And that is really what a schedule is. And for a lot of families, the use of the schedule seems like a meaningless exercise, and extended family काफी time बोलते हैं क्या ये लेकर घूमती रहती हो, बस उसमें है तो क्या हुआ, अभी हमको निकलना है तो निकलो, schedule में नहीं है तो नहीं निकले तो क्या करें, कोई problem नहीं होगा. And sometimes what happens when हम schedule नहीं use करते हैं और बोलते हैं कि कोई बात नहीं, और families कभी कभी बोलते हैं कोई बात नहीं चलो बोल रहे हैं तो we go out, and then they see कि ये तो कोई behaviors नहीं हो रहा है, बोलते हैं कि देखो कोई difficulty नहीं हुआ, आप ऐसे ही बोलते रहते हो. But difficulty नहीं हुआ, what we understand by that is कोई reaction नहीं हुआ बच्चे से. कुछ बच्चे हैं जब ऐसा sudden changes होता है और schedule के बाहर हम जाते हैं, they internalize their stress. तो वो बाहर कुछ नहीं दिखाएगा, but inside there is a lot of anxiety, right? And वो anxiety रहेगा, so learning doesn't happen too well. Anything that the child could have learned from the next experience does not happen. कुछ बच्चे हैं जो वो जो anxiety है उसको externalize करते हैं. Only with children who externalize हम मानते हैं अच्छा हाँ उससे उसका कोई दिक्कत हुआ है. But if they internalize the difficulty, then we say कोई परेशानी नहीं हुआ है. But परेशानी हुआ है, right? For all of us, if I had expected I would be doing this and somebody comes and suddenly changes it, I get anxious. Many of us do. And that structure is such an important part of the child's life. Knowing ये predictability, क्या होने वाला है, क्या नहीं होने वाला है, कहाँ होने वाला है, all of these things are very, very important to our children. And the structure is really something that we find is really hard for the extended family to understand, and they feel क्या एक useless काम कर रहा है, क्यों इसको नहीं देते हो. And the best part is, and this is the more difficult thing, when you're using structure and children settle down, and we know how amazingly they settle down and they function because anxiety nahi hai, learning is happening well, predictability hai, and they're learning really well, and the child is settled down. And now supposing after a month, one day there is a little meltdown. I've seen families, extended family come and say, क्या बकवास चीज करते हो, बोलते हो कि कुछ इतना अच्छा चीज है, इतना अच्छा चीज है, पर देखो कैसा बिहेवियर है. One meltdown at the end of 2 months, immediately it seems that all the work that has happened before is of no value. And it's very demotivating for parents to hear that kind of a refrain from families. So it's very important to understand that all of us have bad days. I'm learning well, but sometimes I will have a bad day. I will have a bad day. And when a child is having a difficult time, it is very important to let the parents intervene in the way they know best. Just तरीके से, whatever way the parent feels that I want to manage this. I think it's a good idea to let the parents do it, unless if the parents are asking, कि हमें help चाहिए, then it's different. But if the parents are intervening, they have a plan in their mind. They have something that they have thought out. And I know that sometimes जब एक public place में हम autistic family member को लेकर निकले हैं as a joint, as a large group, and if there is a behavior, I know that for many members in the extended family, it seems like, oh God, it's so embarrassing, क्यों ये कर रहा है? And then I will say the same thing that we tell our parents when they are learning. जब वो सीखना शुरू करते हैं, we tell them कि हमें ये सोचना है कि some strangers in a mall or in a movie theater जिसको हम और कभी नहीं देखेंगे, वो क्या सोचेगा? How important is that? Is that more important, or what my kid with autism is learning? Which is more important? What should I think about more? कि लोग क्या सोचेंगे ना, what will help my child more? So it's very important to keep that in mind, that if the child is having a meltdown, that is because the child is confused about something, is not able to communicate something. कोई चीज हुआ है जिससे उसका बहुत एंजाइटी हो रहा है, इसीलिए मेल्टडाउन होता है. शैतानी कर रहा है उसलिए नहीं. The autistic child having a meltdown is not a person just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. The child is having a difficult time, and the parents would know क्या करना है. We can always ask the parents, is there something I can do? Absolutely. It's very good to ask the parents, is there something I can do? But if the parent feels that I can manage it on their own, it's great. And then when the child settles down, that is a great time to intervene and say, yay, how smart you are. Look how wonderfully you've settled down. Kitna acha control kar liya apne aap ko. With our children, there is so much that our children have to learn. Itna kuch seekhna hai, that every little step that they take is a big celebration. So a child who has learned to eat, say, roti, taken a bite of roti for the first time, a child who'd never eaten roti before, is a yay time. I know the first time my son ate rice when he was 14 years old. I was so excited because he could not. His sensory challenges were so strong, so strong. That is one thing that we have to remember, that many of our kids have huge sensory challenges. There may be sounds that bother them. There may be smells. जो हमें bother नहीं करते. I don't even get the smell. I can't smell an orange 2 rooms away. But my son may be smelling an orange that is being peeled 2 rooms away. And he may like it or it may bother him. And if it bothers him, then he won't want to stay there. So कभी-कभी जब ये family get-togethers होता है ना, and the entire family comes together, and sometimes the family of the autistic child will not want to stay there for long. कभी-कभी ऐसा होगा, they will want to leave early. जल्दी चले जाने मांगेगा. we have to understand that maybe there is a reason. Maybe here is a child जिसके लिए यहाँ पर रहना is really hard. Maybe the sound is too triggering for him. Maybe the smell of so many people, maybe the visual, कभी-कभी शादी घर में और ये सब जगह में बहुत lights रहता है. Maybe the visual overload is too much. The parents know that यहाँ पर उसका बहुत मुश्किल होता है. And if they say कि हम जल्दी चले जाएंगे, they are not being unsocial. They are teaching the child कि अभी आधे घंटे में चले जाएंगे, and in time they will slowly increase the time they stay there, so that the child learns to stay in a place like this for longer periods. But again, there are some people who will never want to be in a crowded place, who will never want to be in a noisy place. There are adults with autism who clearly tell us they do not like being in a noisy place. Then we won't want to force them. जैसे कि supposing if I don't like movies, हमें यदि movies पसंद नहीं है, हमें कोई जबरदस्ती movies ले जाता है, you know, that wouldn't be quite right. So similarly with our autistic kids, हम जैसे हम समझते हैं कि if they don't like something, then we won't force them. But very often जब parents short time के लिए जाकर लौट जाते हैं, because they are trying to teach their child to tolerate the challenges of staying in a noisy, loud, you know, all our social things are very noisy and loud. And with strong smells, our food smells are very strong, which is very hard for a lot of people. Hamara masala, hamara mithai jab banta hai, wo mithai ka smells, the syrup that is being made, these are very hard for a lot of our kids. So if the parent is wanting to move out early, they have their reasons for not wanting to stay, to understand them and to support them in that. That is very, very important. And to celebrate the smallest steps. So if the child stays for half an hour and the parent says, yay, to aadha ghanta reh gaya, to understand that they are not bragging about their child. And even if they are bragging, why not? Because जो एक न्यूरोटिपिकल बच्चा क्लास में कहीं पर जाकर परफॉर्म किया बहुत अच्छा करके, and we brag about that, for the kid with autism, having stayed in a shadi ghar for half an hour could be something to brag about. And we have to understand that we all have a different, you know, Everests to climb. Everybody has a different Everest. Sabka same nahi hota hai. And to appreciate that and to cheer along with the family instead of thinking ye itna chota chota cheez ko itna bada kar deta hai, which is something again that we often hear family members come and say that, you know, ye itna chota chota cheez ko itna bada bana deta hai. And we have to say, you have to understand from the child's perspective. It's not that the parent is making a big thing, it's the child. For the child, it was so much effort to stay in that shadi ghar, to stay in that birthday house for all that time and put up with all the challenges that the autistic kid is having to put up with. So to understand the perspective of the child, to understand where the parent is coming from. So for instance, one of the things jo very often is a big challenge is to do with education. So I know that all of us, hum sab chahte hain. I know my parents wanted, I wanted कि हमारा बेटा regular school में पढ़े, right? All of us want that. Who doesn't? And there is no parent of autistic kid who does not want their child to go to a mainstream school. But kabhi as parents we realize that हमारा school system has not matured to that level. हमारा जो systems अभी है, services जो अभी है, वो autistic बच्चे के लिए ready नहीं है. And sometimes parents realize that mainstream school में जाकर my child will not only not learn, may actually regress. And then they often want to take that decision. And as family members, as extended family members, we will want to support the parent in that decision. Because the parent वो decision लेते हैं ना, it's really hard for them to take that decision कि हम mainstream school में नहीं भेजेंगे, उसको कोई home school कराएंगे या एक special needs school में भेजेंगे या कोई therapy center में भेजेंगे. It's not an easy decision. Parents के लिए that's really, really hard. And it's very important for the extended family to support the parent in this very hard decision that they've had to take. ठीक है, if you don't want to send, if you've taken that decision, fine, we will support you. How can we support you in that? To try and do that. That's very, very important. I think I have kind of covered most of the things I thought would be important to cover. I'll take questions. So, basically what I wanted to say is that, our culture and our country gives us something that is not there in most cultures. There are in many Eastern cultures, but bahut jagah mein nahi hai, which is an extended family. It is an amazing, amazing gift जो most of us have, जो हमारे culture के बाहर बहुत जगह में है नहीं. And it would be amazing if this extended family could become a great support system for our autistic kid and their immediate parents. Because with that support system, the parents could do so much more. Because, one of the things that a lot of the extended families do, and they're amazing ones, who provide respite to the parents, who help them out in their academics, who help them in going out sometimes. If they're traveling, they say, okay, we'll go out together and we'll support you. Take them on holidays together when the family wants to go and the child wants to go, and the family needs the support of the extended family. And there are amazing extended families that do that. And all of us can do more to support the autistic kid and their family, because the old African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. And if the extended family can give that lead, then the community can also change far more quickly than it does right now. And I think I'll end with that and take any questions that there might be.
So thank you so much, Mary. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mary, for inspiring and encouraging us with your precious words for this session on Mama, Papa, and everyone else. So we have a few participants who have raised their hands. So we'll take the few questions from the participants. First, Ruchika, you have raised your hand. You can unmute and...
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Mary, you can mute
Good
yourself.
afternoon, Mary ma'am. It's been such a privilege hearing you out. It's more like yoga for me, hearing you out and all. I have been associated with AFA from the past 6-7 years now. I started in 2016. And today you have said each and everything which I think every parent needed to say all these years during their struggling years. So I'm really amazed this kind of webinar has been organized, and you have given such a good insight from the perspective of a parent of a special need parent, and what kind of a support a special need parent exactly needs. It may not be physical, but the minimum we can get the moral support, a pat on the back, a motivational line will be more than enough for us. Just one thing I like to ask, if we talk about the social situations, there have been instances that we take our child in the social situation, we make him prepared, we follow the schedule, we make a social story, we are going to this place, we are going to do this. Still, at some point, maybe the child has anxiety, the child is anxious, and suddenly some tantrum or meltdowns comes up. So as you said, we need to be more focused on the child at that point of time. But isn't it better that we should basically take out the child from that situation as a first step towards controlling his tantrum and meltdown? Because maybe the extended family can understand what the child is going through, the parents can understand, but what about the other people, the hundreds of people who are present there? Each and everyone can't have the same same mentality towards the child, especially needed child, or it's still considered as a taboo in our society. This is what my personal experience has been, because initially I also resisted in going with my son, my 9-year-old son, into functions or outings. But now I'm confident enough that I know that he may be a bit difficult, but he also has the right to enjoy his childhood. He also has the right to go places which really make him more better, or he really wants to explore, because our kid really like to explore. So I can't stop him from going somewhere. I can just take some tips on how to manage it better while taking the child out. So what is the best way if a child throws a tantrum or a meltdown, especially in a gathering, a family gathering, more than an extended family gathering? What should be the first step and how to tackle it? That's the only question I have.
See, when it's a very good question, because this is something that I had to navigate with my son also. So see, one of the things is to try and figure out what triggered it. If he prepared him sufficiently, if he took along enough things that were of his liking, if we have, see, it's also to see that when we go to a family gathering like this, is it the length of time that we're staying? Is that something that he can tolerate? So for many of us, we had started by maybe taking him for, I know families started by taking him for the child for 10 minutes and leaving. And then slowly next time they go, they stay a bit longer, and having a visual timer also showing the child. So if the child finds a couple of hours too much, it might be a good idea to leave before the child starts feeling overwhelmed. Because when they're throwing what we call a tantrum, very often it's not so much a tantrum as a meltdown, because something has become too overwhelming. And like I said, हमारा जो जितना events होता है, they are really noisy, loud, light, बहुत कुछ होता है. And for a lot of autistic kids, some autistic kids love it, but not all. So if it is too overwhelming for the child, then I would say maybe you don't stay too long, right? And if you think he's really feeling stressed out, take the child and walk out of there, of course, because your child has to be your first priority. यदि आपको लग रहा है कि वहां पर वो बहुत परेशान हो रहा है and he can't handle it anymore, just take him and walk out of there.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And one more thing, ma'am, I've seen when I went to public places, suppose I go to MACD, a particular MACD my child goes, and each and every time I follow that metro route, I have to take my child to McDonald's. And he prefers a particular seat to sit there. Every time it happens. And there have been times that most of the time when I go, it's free. There is no much rush or that. But कभी-कभी ऐसा होता है कि वो seat available नहीं होती है, and there is somebody sitting. So I made my child learn that, Anish, we will request and then we'll take a seat, because initially he didn't want to wait. He just wants to go and sit and wait for his order and eat and go away. But there are people who have really, really supported me when they have seen the child getting a little bit cranky or not waiting. They were youngsters, basically. So I think the youngsters nowadays, they are more aware that everybody is not same. If everybody will be same, who will be different then? So they understand the concept of special needs, autism, but still there's a lot of awareness to be done in terms of the extended family, you say, because the first family, basically they understand what you exactly go through. They've seen it, they've observed it, they've experienced it. But the extended family, our cousins, our mother's cousins, father's cousins, they basically don't understand the concept because they have not seen or observed it. So can we do something with respect to that? Should we talk to them? Will they understand if we talk to them about our kid has some sort of, our kid thinks differently, our kid behaves differently, but that's okay. This is the way he is. Everybody has the right to be the way he or she is. So it's same with the kid also.
Absolutely. And in fact, taking off from what you said, extended family ko bolna is very important. And one of the things jab extended family kabhi karte hain ki they tell everybody, oh, ye abhi bachcha hai. But that's not the point. Not to say that ye abhi bachcha hai, because everybody is a bachcha at some point, but to rather say he has autism, he is different, he has a different way of understanding. And as far as you're going to the McDonald's and you said that he sits at the same seat, all our kids tend to create routines. And maybe one of the things you can start doing is have a card with his name written on it. And wherever he has to sit, put the card there and say, hum yahan baithenge. And you carry that card with you to the metro and wherever else you're going. Even on the metro, you can put it on the seat and say, this is where you'll sit. So when you go to McDonald's, you can use that same card and you will find that chances are that he'll be much more willing to sit in other places.
More flexible, more flexible.
Yeah, and make him more flexible.
Flexible. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks for the lovely session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Moving on further, we'll have question from Shayani. You can ask your question.
Yeah. So I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Good evening, Mary ma'am. We have been associated with AFA since 2016. My son is Ankush. He's 13 years old, and he actually attended the PCTP session with Indrani ma'am. Okay. So due to my professional commitments, since 2017, I have been roaming around the globe. So, and as usual, we have been taking Ankush along with us. Now, of late, what we have noticed is that my son, he's recollecting the past. Okay, and he's getting a bit of, what to say, agitated at times, you can say. We can term that as meltdown. So I will just give you an example. I moved out of India and I went to London. There I stayed for approximately a year, came back to India, stayed in India for another 1 year. Then I went to Germany. Now, when I went to Germany, time and again, he used to come back to us. When I say us, I mean to say me and my wife. He used to come back to us and he used to tell us that he wants to go to London. And when, obviously, it's not possible, as we all know, but this was resulting in a lot of meltdown at times, which, and my son is, I mean, he's verbal, but his communication is basically need-based. I mean, he cannot even completely explain. He will just come up to us and say that I want to go to London. But when we say that, beta, it's not possible, that's when he gets agitated, or maybe you can say there is a meltdown which is happening. So is there any way to control it?
Excuse me. Oh God, excuse me. So, so of course, I'm presuming that every time there is a change and he has to move from London to India to Germany and wherever else he is moving, that you all prepare him much in advance with a calendar and
Yes.
understanding. All of that you do, right?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So when he says, I want to go to London, you yourself said that he has difficulty, though he is very verbal, he has difficulty in communication. You don't want to presume that he wants to go to London right away or something. When you say it's not possible, then what is happening? You are shutting down his communication. I would instead make it into a conversation. I would say, oh, you want to go to London? Where would you like to go? Would you like to, and give him an option at the places that you've been to. Would you like to go and visit Trafalgar Square, or would you like to go to the, whatever, some other place? And make a conversation and then say, oh, that was a place we really enjoyed, didn't we? I wish we could go to London also. Instead of saying, no, you can't go, it's impossible.
Okay.
Take that away. Make it into a conversation piece. Hold
Okay.
conversations with him around it based on his experiences, your joint experiences. Okay?
Yeah, ma'am. Thanks. So, but in that case, what happens is that what we have noticed in him, that he wants some sort of commitment from us. I mean, when he's talking to us, he wants me to tell him whether
not possible. Because you've already told him a negative. Try what I'm saying, and if it doesn't work, get back to us.
Absolutely, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Moving on to further, Galaxy A71 has raised hand. Can we please?
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, Mary ma'am. This is Isha. Hi, ma'am. I wanted to ask you that when we talk about structure and we're talking about schedules, everything, one of the things that I have seen is that when I am visiting my relatives, my parents, somebody, then I have requested that sometimes just to minimize distractions, to keep things away, things out of reach, so that it minimizes the distraction for my son, and helps him to settle down better. But sometimes my parents might find that it a little bit difficult, and I have kind of difficulty in communicating this and getting them to understand why it is required. So any suggestions around that, and that can help us, help me make them understand, and also for
Yeah.
helping them,
Yes, yes.
get the
That's
physical
a,
structure in place.
that's an excellent question. In fact, that was in my mind and it slipped my. I'm so glad you brought it up, because this is another common thing that happens, that when we are visiting somebody and we need to keep some of the things away, so that we know that my child will get to it and things might happen. And it's very hard to get a lot of family members to agree to doing that, right? And I don't know the best way, but one of the things I often tell family members, and I've said this to parents also, that supposing if you were going to get, like we often take off our jewelry and we keep them, our expensive, diamond rings or gold chains, and we keep them on our table. But when I know that an unknown repairman is going to come to my house and be there for next 2 or 3 days, will I keep my jewelry and earrings and rings around? And I've actually said this to one of my friends whose house I'd gone to. And she said, no, this was years ago. And she said, no, I guess we won't do that, because of course, it'll get stolen. I said, yeah, because something might happen to those things. So that is why I'm telling you, while my son is around, please, can you keep these things by? For the same reason. And when you do that, you will help my son. He will learn. You want him to learn, don't you? So he will learn. So please, if you could just put these by. I don't know if you can say this to your family members, and I don't know, there may be other ways too that I really don't know of, but this is something that I had done.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Moving on to further, we have a question from Prerna Khanna.
Good afternoon, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. Ma'am, I have a question for parents who want their children to be mainstream, to give them mainstream education. What is it that, they would like to tell the school when they want their kids to get admitted? And what are the things that, they should take care of, to ensure, because they've been working on the behaviors and everything. And it really matters to them that, the child gets the mainstream education, because we want the social and communication skills to develop.
Okay, so what should they tell the school? See, first of all, there is no one way, because I was just speaking to a family 3 days back that had got their kid into a school, and then they mentioned that their child has autism. And this is a kid who's absolutely lovely. And the school immediately said, we can't take him. He got admission, and they were supposed to go and do whatever the formalities were. And they said, oh, because we don't have anybody to help kids like this. And the mother said that, he doesn't really need any help. They said, no, we can't. So what we tell the school, in an ideal situation, we tell the school, my kid has autism. But then depending on what the situation is like, the school is like, so that is something the parents will have to take a call, depending. If they know that the school is a very inclusive place, then of course, go ahead and tell them. But if they know that there is no other school nearby, this is the only school around, and I have no idea what they are like, then they have to think about it. Having said that, you said that, they have got the behaviors in place. I would say, this thing of, it's not that have the behaviors in place, it's more about providing the kids with a learning environment before the child has gone in, where the child has learned. See, let me put it this way. It has to be a two-way thing, right? The kid with autism has to learn some skills, and the environment has to also provide him some ways to be able to support it. And I know many of the schools won't do that right away. But of course, once the kid is gone, and we can, because no kid can be turned away, right, under the law. Anyway, having said that, when I'm working with the child, some of the things that, given the way our schools are, we will have to work on helping the child learn to attend to joint instructions, help the child learn to enjoy attending to joint instructions. Let me put it differently. Not attending to joint instructions, but enjoy sitting in a place. I've got to help my child learn to attend to what I'm saying. I have to help my child learn to respond to joint attention. I have to help my child learn to enjoy these things, right? And there are strategies for that. But one of the critical strategies that we keep saying over and over and over again is the use of structure. We have this young late teenager who's come in, who's been on ABA, and whose behaviors are right up there. And all he needed is structure to tell him. We are not providing structure and trying to get all that down. We are constantly told, you do ABA and they will all settle down. It doesn't happen. The one thing that will help you settle down is structure, because you have got predictability. And why is that important? Because it is bringing your anxiety down. When your anxiety is down, then what happens is, if there is a certain bit of idhar-udhar happening, you're able to deal with it because you're already in a calm place. And I'll just give you a little example. So for instance, and I'll relate it to you with the school situation, related to the school situation. So we have a group home and we have adults staying here, and we worked on giving them structure. So some of them who had what are called behaviors, largely because there was not enough predictability in their life, they're all comfortable, settled, because there's a lot of structure over here. And earlier, when they were home, there used to be constant behaviors. The parents used to be stressed out about having them at home. Now, the parents take them home. They're delighted to take them home. So parents are happy to take them home because there are no so-called behaviors happening. And the thing is that it's not that the parents are able to give a structured environment. No, they are not. But because these young adults are in a place where the environment is really made for them, it's structured to their needs, they are at such a calm place that they have no difficulties in going home to their parents' home and staying for 3-4 days, even though there is no structure, and then coming back, because they are going with a calm. When you're already calm, you can deal with a lot of things. And that is what happens if parents are able to incorporate structure in the children's lives at home and before they start school. So after that, when they go to school, schools are not going to provide structure. Even the very supportive ones will be willing to provide a certain amount of predictability. And school environment is by and large predictable, right? But if they are able to do that before the child goes to school, it enables the child to go with a sense of calm and deal with whatever upheavals are happening in the school. So in addition to teaching the child to learn to enjoy all of these things, enjoy interaction, enjoy learning, enjoy sitting in one place, enjoy listening to the teacher, enjoy listening to joy and responding to joy attention, structure will help in all of that and also provide them with the what should I say? What's the word? Serenity that will help them deal with whatever happens at school. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Are there basic few tips you would like to give to the schools who would like to include children with autism?
Keep your language very literal when you're speaking to the child. Don't be sarcastic. Don't use, like I said, keep your eye on the clock. Teachers often say that in class. Keep your eyes on the clock, keep your eyes on the time. And the autistic kids are really confused by that. Keep the language very literal, right? Be very clear and specific in your instructions. Don't make sudden changes. If you are making sudden changes in your timetable for whatever reason, things happen. Mark it in the child's timetable. Give the child the day's schedule separately on their table. They can partner with the parent in ensuring the child has the day's timetable separately. The parents will happily make it and send. We keep saying, partner with the parents. Make sure you do that. So there are lots of simple strategies that the school can use to ensure that the child is able to settle down well. Keep the teaching really experiential. Make them do things instead of just teaching them from the book. If you make the children do things, which is what the current learning, the NEP and everything talks about, if the teachers are really doing that, that's really what helps autistic kids learn versus just teaching them from the book and the blackboard.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mary, we have a question in the chat box from Anupama. She's asking her 18 years autistic son was very much attached to his brother who died in accident last month. Since the body was not in a condition to bring home, my sister and father took it directly to crematorium after postmortem. Now my son is missing his mama and hitting his head with his hands. How to tell him and make him understand and accept that his uncle is never coming back?
Yeah, so it's very important. Few things. One, it's good to talk about people going away now from today, because this is something that happens in everybody's life, right? It's important to talk about people passing away, people dying in a very matter-of-fact way, right? To not make it into a, oh, it's terribly sad and then this happens, because of course it is sad for all of us. We miss our people who go away, right? But if we put so much of tension into it, it becomes very hard for the autistic kid to deal with it. Forget about the autistic kid, even regular kids have a lot of difficulties in dealing with it. If we make it a very heavy thing, because we want them all to move on, right? And actually, the reality is in many cultures, death is seen as a release from this life and something to be celebrated. In many tribal cultures, in many religious cultures, death is seen as something to be celebrated. And I think that's really an amazing thing that one could learn about. Having said that, talk to your child about the fact that, people die, people move on. It's very important that to be mindful of what is happening in the home about this event. If there are people at home who are being stressed out, being, talking a lot about how terrible it was, how terrible the accident was, how badly things happened, if we are discussing all of this in front of him, then it is going to be really difficult for him. So if we have discussed it in front of him, we have to do it in a way that he understands, because otherwise what would happen, I don't know if it has been discussed in his presence, and then if we left it at that, then imagine if he can't ask questions about the accident, imagine how terrifying it is for him, right? So we have to be very mindful, and maybe you have been, maybe you have not discussed it at all in front of him. If you have not, then I think you want to talk about people going, how it is okay, people go away sometimes, talk about other people who have gone, parents who have gone or other people who have gone. You have to bring a level of everydayness and normalcy into it. That's all I can say, because that's the only way we have done it, I have done it in the way we've talked to people about it. And yeah, that's all I can say, bring a level of, everydayness into talking about it. I know that it must be terribly overwhelming for you to have lost a brother, but it would be good to be very calm and composed when talking about it to your son. Because when we get overwhelmed, we are not often able to explain to him why we are getting overwhelmed. And the other thing I would say is that I think we've written an article on losing loved ones, because I have lost many loved ones from the time my son was really, really little. And we'd written an article, I cannot remember, it is an autism network. All the back issues are there on our website. I cannot remember which issue it is, but maybe.
It's an old volume. I've seen that article. It's in an old volume. I have that book also. I can give the name also.
Mary, I've just put in the URL. I've just put it in.
Actually, you put it in?
Yeah, just put it in the chat.
Achha, so just read that. I can't remember exactly what all was written in that, but maybe that you'll find that helpful also, to help you to also deal with it, because it's a lot of your feelings and emotions that your son will also pick up. And when you lose a loved one, it is a very, very, very difficult thing to deal with for ourselves too.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I know I wasn't able to give a great answer to that.
It's okay. I'll read the article.
Thank you. Moving on further, Malvika has a question.
Ma'am, exactly to tell you, I don't have a question, but I have a few answers for the questions asked before. Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, actually, one of them told a child wants to go to London and other things. Ma'am, what attracts us is what we see, right, ma'am? What we have seen never disappears from our life. Even in case, if you say a child, you are specially abled one, you can't get married. But when we go to a marriage and see the others coming there with kids, every child or every person wants to get married. And this is what happens. This is psychology, right, ma'am? Telling that as the wrong thing is wrong, isn't it, ma'am?
See, what you just said, that you are specially able, you can't get married, I cannot imagine ever saying it to any child. I would never say that to anybody. What I would instead say is, the reality is that there are innumerable people who do not get married, who are not disabled. A lot of people don't get married, right? And we can tell our children that, not everyone gets married. All of us want to get married. See, there is no need to go into lots of details, but the reality that we see around is not that everybody gets married. And we can just talk about that. And I know a lot of parents who've done that. I have done that. We've talked about the fact that, yeah, many of us want to get married. And the reality also is, let me first finish this thought, that not everybody gets married. So that's one thing, that marriage is not that happens to everybody. And if it doesn't, it's okay. If it does, it's good. If it does, it's okay. If it doesn't, it's okay. Right. Secondly, a lot of autistic kids don't want to get married themselves. We have it in our heads that we want them to get married.
But I'm not autistic.
They want to get married. Many of them are not even interested in marriage, right?
Okay.
It's the parents who are the ones who are keen to get them married. So if my child talks about marriage, that's different. Then we have to talk about it differently. But if my child is not talking about marriage, why am I saying that? It's like saying that if my child has not talked about going to study at Yale, and I say, oh, all your cousins have gone to Yale, but you are disabled, so you can't go to Yale. No, not everybody goes there. So why do I even have to bring it up?
Exactly, ma'am. But parents just say, you can't get married, you are disabled. Which prompts me to, what the hell? I can get married. I am good as others. Till now, I'm not gone to a specially able school, college, or had anything that a specially able child gets. But they are saying, yet I'm a specially able child. This forces me to what the hell? Let me try it. What will happen? Maybe I will die. That's it, right? Everyone has to die a day. And so what if I?
See, you're absolutely right. Not everybody goes to college. Not everybody goes to school. Not everybody gets married. To say, tell somebody, I think it's a terrible thing to tell anybody that you're specially able and you can't get married. And I
Yeah,
absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. How can you say that? The reality is lots of people in my family, there are innumerable people who are not married. They just didn't get married. Either they could not find a match or they wanted to marry somebody who didn't want to marry them. All kinds of things happen, right? So it is not because one is specially able, but because not everybody gets married. That's it. It's as simple as that.
exactly, ma'am. Maybe I would have tried, and if I had not got anywhere, I would have just left it. But this, all those speeches that they told you, especially able, you can't get married. If you get married, you will be left behind by your husband or cheated. All these forces me to get married, ma'am. I want to know what is going to happen.
See, marriage has to be something where it has to be a two-way thing, right? There is an, if you're marrying somebody on your own, right? If I marry somebody I like and I want to marry that person, I have to know that that person also likes me, right? So only then I can get married, right? The other thing is that if my marriage is being arranged, right, then I have to find somebody who would be willing to, who I can find a match with. And then if I want to get married and I found a match, and if I can manage my house, and if I can earn my money and support myself, and if I can look after my household, and if I can look after my spouse when my spouse is sick, and my spouse will look after me when I'm sick, then why can't I get married? I absolutely agree with you. If I can do what everybody else does, take on responsibility of marriage, and I can do that, I should be able to get married. I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you.
So I
If I
got
can
so
take the responsibilities of marriage, I have as much right to get married if I can find a partner.
exactly, ma'am. I got so angry on my parents only because of this and told, better you get me married.
You can tell them to look for a match. Maybe they haven't been able to find a match, which is why they don't know what to tell you.
Actually, I'm not having autism. My disorder is something different. I'm having
Okay,
neurological problem, which is
okay.
MS. And so, mom says if you are going to have sex or other things, it would be problematic to you. You may become disabled because that is what happens to others. But the only question I ask my parents is this, or every parent is this. When you say that giving a birth to a child is like the second birth for a mother, why not is be for me? Okay, yes, there is possibility for me to die. Exactly, I understand. But isn't it not there for all the ladies? Then none of them have to give birth to a child. If they are able to give birth, then why can't I? Why can't I try at least? This is my question to every parent here.
Mm. It's a very valid question. And if your parents feel that, see, I don't know, I initially thought maybe you were one of the parents. But so when you ask the question, so if you are saying that you want to have a child and your parents are saying, no, I don't know what your condition is. If it is that childbirth would be hard for you, maybe you could adopt a child.
I
The
told
adopt
by
also, you can adopt a child.
surrogation
Talk
I
to
will
your
have a
parents
child.
about it.
I told by surrogation I will have a child. That's not a problem for them. But getting a boy for me is a problem for them as of now.
Okay, okay. We could talk about this more later if you want.
Oh, am I
Huh?
disturbing you, ma'am?
No, 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 you're not. I'm saying if you want to have more conversation, if you want to talk about this later at any time, you can connect and talk if you ever want to talk about it.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not saying you're bothering me. I'm saying later, if you ever want to talk about it and you're bothered about something that has happened, we'll be happy to listen and talk to you. That's
Yeah,
what I
for
was
sure.
saying. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I have asked my question.
Okay. Okay.
Moving on to further, Jayavardhan has a question. Jayavardhan.
Ma'am, I'm actually not a grown-up. I'm a kid here, but I have a question. Now there's a kid at my school. I think his name is Aman. So now he has a caretaker with him, like literally all the time at school. So now I met him in art class once. He's a good person. He's a very good person actually, and he's very patient. But sometimes now he loses it when he doesn't get what he wants. Like I'm not sure. I think Ruchika auntie told us about her son who wanted a seat at McDonald's. Now in this case, I'm not sure exactly, but sometimes he doesn't get what he wants, and that's when he loses it. So then he begins banging his head on the walls. So now, according to what I've studied about the brain, and according to this, I feel that he's hurting himself for absolutely no reason, because he can speak, sure. It is easy for a person to express his opinions, but however, when he bangs his head on the wall, he's further damaging himself. So my question is in general that how is it possible to avoid this, and what other ways is it possible for people to express themselves rather than to avoid headbang?
How old is your child?
Ma'am, I'm a child myself.
Acha, then who are you asking for?
Ma'am, I have a friend. His name is Aman.
Who bangs his head?
Yes, ma'am. Because when he sometimes, yes, ma'am, and he's actually causing trauma to himself. So
how old is he?
Ma'am, he's 10, the same age as me.
Okay. See, I don't know why he's banging his head. And I wouldn't say it's only because he doesn't get what he wants. I would say there is some confusion happening. Maybe there is, when he's banging his head, you're saying that he does it when he doesn't get something. There is some confusion happening here. And what has to be done is something that we will have to talk to the parents about and understand the exact situation, because if there is no, I mean, I'm very impressed that you're asking this question. It's lovely of you to ask this question to try and find a way for your friend. But there is always has to be, we have to understand what the particular situation is, and we can't just say do this or do that, because we have to understand why really he was banging his head.
Oh, okay, ma'am. I can explain that.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I can explain that. So now, but I think it's like a combination of a few factors. So now, firstly, normally I only meet him on art class, but what happens is that now in art class, he has a few sensory impairments. So now his hand has tremors, so it's really hard for him to draw, because I'm not sure if the teacher knows, but that he has hand tremors. But when his pictures come out, they're not very refined. Because of this, the teacher gets angry, and he feels that he's unable to meet up to her expectations, and that's why he feels like he's not good enough. And I think that's his logic. And then after that, he begins banging his head. I think he's stressed, or either he has a minor issue of not being able to live up to the expectations that other children who are not disabled are able to reach.
Thank you so much. You know what you're saying here? He doesn't have a problem. It's the teacher who has a problem. If he has a hand tremor and the teacher is not able to see that, and even if he didn't have a hand tremor, not everybody is an artist. Not everybody is a singer. If I were put in a music class and the teacher got angry with me for not reaching her expectation, it'll be ridiculous, because I sing like a donkey. I really bray when I sing. I have no sense of tune. So it would be ridiculous of the teacher to expect me to sing like another person in my class who's a brilliant singer. So if this teacher is expecting him or everybody else to be able to draw at the level that the teacher expects, because art is a talent. It's not just that, everybody is able to do it. And plus, if he has a hand tremor. So what is happening is he's feeling very frustrated that I'm doing my best, and the teacher doesn't even recognize that. Because despite his tremor, he is doing the best art that he can. And what is he getting in return? Negativity.
Ma'am, so I think it's because he's bottling his own stress up inside him. He's losing it completely and he's taking it out on her
There is nothing we can do till we can get the teacher to change. What we can do is talk to him, since you're his friend. Tell him, this teacher has no idea. She has no idea that, everybody is not a great teacher. And I know you're really working very hard. But, I would want to talk to the teacher. Maybe you could tell the teacher that he has a difficulty. His hand has tremors. Some people have hand tremors, and there is nothing you can do about that, right? So if he has a hand tremor and he has difficulty in drawing, tell the teacher about it. Maybe she's not even aware about it.
Ma'am, so I think that would be the right course of action. Excuse me, ma'am, but I also have a second part of the question. Actually, now about that, now he has a caretaker with him most of the time, as I told you. So now, because of this, after class, some children chuckle and snicker in between themselves because they feel like he is like a kindergartner. He needs help to do literally everything. And because of his hand tremor, it's also hard for him to pick anything up. Or example, like he also stammers because of this. So now this leads to embarrassment. I mean, people have now become slightly more sensitive. So they're not doing anything bad now. But he still feels the unknown embarrassment. And that's why he's really stressed, as I can see. So now how do we help those who are autistic to overcome that internal embarrassment of having to have a caretaker around them?
You know what? The other kids are teasing him, not
No,
because
they're not teasing him. It's just that they used to tease him, but now they're more sensible. So now they don't tease him anymore. But he's still feeling that same embarrassment because he is dependent on a caretaker. Because of this dependency, he's feeling an embarrassment that is clearly visible. So that's why I think he should. I don't know how he can solve it for himself.
See, I don't know what the caregiver is there for. There must be a reason why the caregiver is there. The thing is that I'm really very amazed at you. I think it's lovely that you are talking for your friend. Anyway, having said that, what's your name, by the way?
Ma'am, Jayavardhan. It's written right here.
Okay, Jayavardhan. Okay, huh. So the thing is that so again, like I said, I have no idea what the caregiver is for.
Ma'am, for his hand tremors and his minor issues.
Okay. See, the thing is that the caregiver is there for a reason. It is the same way that some people have a wheelchair, right? Some kids in school may have a wheelchair.
Yes, ma'am. My friend fell down the stairs, so now he's paralyzed. So that's basically. Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, sometimes some are paralyzed, some because they have spina bifida or some other condition because of which they need a wheelchair to move around in, right? So now, because they're taking the support of a wheelchair, would they feel embarrassed?
No, ma'am. Ideally, they won't. But
so the thing is that exactly. So the thing is that again, I don't know why your friend needs a caregiver in the class or a support person in the class. But if the support person is somebody he needs, then his embarrassment would be coming from how others are reacting to him.
Ma'am, because nowadays some people do feel like now, although they don't directly tease him, they say that isn't it a little weird because now he's already in grade 5. And even though he does have autism, he should be able to control himself by now. So like, I think it's concern, and he does hear that sometimes.
He does hear what?
Ma'am, he overhears sometimes he does overhear people talking about that. Yeah. Although he's, I mean, we do know that he has a condition, but I mean, why the caregiver? Is that embarrassing?
Jayavardhan, the thing is that I know people may not be teasing him openly, but I feel that there probably are people who still say things to him about his caregiver. And since I have no idea why the caregiver is there, what the caregiver does, it's very hard for me to make any suggestions. But the thing to do would be to maybe create awareness in the school, maybe have, I don't know where your school is, but have an organization that works on disability rights come and give a talk. We do that a lot in Delhi, give talks in schools, so that just like, there was a time when women in schools were made fun of, girls in schools were made fun of because they were seen as, weirdos coming to school. They had no right to come to school. And that's a reality. There was a time when girls in school were made fun of. So similarly, people with disabilities were made fun of for a long time. Now, people with disabilities are not made that much fun of, but they still are. But if they have a caregiver with them, then they're made fun of. And the whole thing is to try and create awareness. And you are such a wonderful advocate for your friend. I think you're really, really amazing. Maybe you could try and connect with some disability group that could come and do a few sessions in your school, do a few interactive events or exercises that would help everybody get a better understanding of diversity. I don't know if anybody has any other suggestions, but this is what I could come up with.
Mom, that sounds pretty good, because until now we don't have any groups advocating for disability rights or determination rights. So that sounds like a good idea. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and get in touch with us and we'll direct you to groups in your city or town, wherever you are. We'll try and do that. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
And thank you so much for what you do, Jayvardhan. I think you're amazing.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think I'll have to sign off now. Maybe we'll take one last question.
Yes, this will be the last one. Lavanya has raised her hand. Lavanya, you can ask a question.
Hello, Mary ma'am. Wonderful session. Thank you so much for a lovely session.
Thank you.
This question is regarding my daughter Lavanya, and sometimes, I am in a confusion, because what happens is when when her granddad is coming to visit her. Now, at some point, she is quite excited to meet him. But there comes a point when she feels that she only wants to talk to him or interact with him in whatever way for a limited period of time. And it's very difficult to make my father understand sometimes that this is the only time where she wants to just interact for a little bit. And then, she wants to go and do something else of her own, she just wants to go. So how do you make grandparents understand that, it's okay, if she's come to say just a hello and go and do whatever she wants to do later on, or follow her routine. And it becomes very, very challenging more to make family members understand than our kids to follow a certain routine or whatever, one has to do with them.
Yeah.
Because these questions, they keep coming up. It becomes very exhausting to answer also as a parent. So I don't know, how would you say I should make it easier for my father or anyone else for that matter to understand that it's all right, she's probably having a bad day, or maybe she just doesn't want to talk to you, or she wants to just come and talk to you for a bit and then go. So how do you make them understand? What should I say?
So when she walks off after a bit, what happens?
I think my father goes into a different zone where he feels that, she's not interested in talking to me. But then he doesn't stop talking, he goes on and on and on and on. And then it becomes very difficult, because then if I stop him and if I tell him in a very cool way that, just let her be, just let it be. Maybe some other time she can have a longer conversation with you. So just let her be, it's all right. But then it's difficult for him to understand, for me to intervene and even tell him that, it's okay. Because as a parent, we are learning, we are observing our kids, we are also learning how to handle our own children at home, outside. But what happens is, it becomes very challenging when a third person is coming into that zone and when that person is not informed so much, or not even informed at all about autism. So how do I make it simple? I mean, like, I'm making it simple for my child to understand, but how do I make it simple for my father to understand that, it's okay not to get so heartbroken if she doesn't recognize you, or not to get heartbroken if she doesn't say a hello or a goodbye to you, or doesn't even give you a hug, or doesn't even interact with you. It's okay, but I don't know. I find myself in a very difficult position now. How do I explain it to him?
You brought up something that is pretty common. I mean, grandparents are lovely, but also they are also the people who have the greatest difficulty sometimes in understanding the grandchildren. I'm not sure. I was thinking that would it help if do you know when your father would be visiting, or is it you don't know? Like, do you have an idea when he's going to be visiting?
He does tell us in
Or
advance.
is it, or does he stay with you? Does he stay with you?
No, we don't stay together, ma'am, because it's just that I came to a point of.
But he visits.
He does visit, but then it's like he has a discussion with me beforehand when he could come and see Lavanya, and Lavanya is informed that yes, the granddad is going to come and see her. But then, at that very minute when she happens to see him, she's quite excited. But then it's a short-lived excitement. That okay, only for, let's say, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then I just want to go and do my thing, or maybe I want to do something else.
It's hands. So have I?
So how do I?
So you know what? If you could do something. A couple of things I was thinking of. Again, I don't know if they are the best ways. One is maybe you could have, see, when your father comes, there's a particular place where he sits, maybe in the living room or something like that, or in Lavanya's room or something, in the living room. So maybe when you know your father is coming, have a little schedule for her. So he comes, she greets him, and then she goes into her room to do some activity. So that
but then how do you make him understand? The point is not Lavanya following the routine.
No, there are two things. One is that there are two things you have to take care of. One is that for him to not feel bad about it. But two, that he does not keep on talking to her, because then that becomes too much for her.
Yeah, overload.
So when you move her into another room, at least that is taken care of.
But then he becomes too touchy about it, ma'am. How do I make him understand?
Then you say that, because once she's there, then you can't say too much. But you can say things like, I don't know, try and say that, oh, Lavanya, when she's excited, Lavanya is so excited to see, grandfather. But Lavanya, after being excited, she gets overwhelmed very quickly. Say that.
Yeah.
She gets overwhelmed very quickly. She gets very excited, and then she gets overwhelmed equally fast. And then she needs to be totally on her own. So say that.
Mary ma'am, if I say that, I hope the child does not take it into a habit of doing it with everyone then.
See, first of all, I don't think that would happen. Two, if you send her away and then say that, have it on the schedule that she moves into another room. And then say that, she gets very excited, and then she gets equally overwhelmed. Say that to your father. Say that, and then maybe you could have her come out again once and do something with his grandfather, like give him a glass of juice or something, or give him something, and then go back again. So there are several short interactions with her grandfather instead of staying there and listening. So she does the thing and then goes back again. Would that help?
How do you make, the point is how to make my father understand, because he goes into a zone where, it's difficult.
That he will have to learn. That he'll have to learn. And then talk about it. Say, when these most of our kids, they find it very hard to put up with, interactions for long. It is a social condition.
Yeah.
Tell him that, it's a social condition. For her, she is making so much of an effort. She's so happy to see you. She loves seeing you. But after a bit, it becomes too much for her.
Yeah.
And that's because it's because of the autism. It's nothing to do with you.
Hmm.
Keep saying that. Say it's nothing to do with you. It's only about, and in time, maybe she will be okay. She'll be able to take interaction for longer periods. And
Longer
perhaps
period,
not only with her grandfather, perhaps it's the same with other people as well.
yeah. With
Yeah.
anyone else.
Say
Sometimes
that.
it happens with other people also.
Yeah, so say that. Say it's not only with you. This is what happens with her with everybody. So he doesn't feel it's just with him. So this is what happens with everyone. She finds it too much. She can't deal with it. So, she'll have to learn. Time de do, after maybe a few years, she'll be able to put up with, interacting for longer periods.
What if I'm unconvincing to my father, ma'am? I really don't know, because
Ultimately, like I always say, you will have to decide which is your first priority.
Yes, that's right.
Right. And of course, you love your dad very much. You want him to feel good. But beyond the point, and I'm sure he'll understand. I'm sure. If you put it this way to him, explain it, keep saying it, he will eventually get it. Sometimes grandfathers take a long time to get it, more than grandmothers.
No, but it's the other way around in my case. It's the grandfather who takes a longer time to understand, reciprocate,
No,
execute.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Grandfathers usually take a longer time to understand.
Yeah, grandfathers take a
Grandmothers
little.
get it quicker.
Yes,
But
grandmothers
we
are
should
very
not generalize. I should not generalize. We should not generalize. But I'm sure he will get it eventually. But give it a shot and see.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary ma'am. So it will be hard to cover all the questions or enough details today. We will be happy to organize further talks and workshops. So please do get in touch with us in case if there are any specific requirements. So thank you so much, Mary, for this wonderful session. Thank you, our participants, for joining us. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.